Welcome to Exposing Rachel and Benjer.
Now, Benjer and I grew up very religious in the Mormon church, and so we grew up, very Christian, really devout in our faith, and we took a faith journey for the last few years and have decided to leave the Mormon church.
And we just left 6 months ago, so it's a pretty recent thing, and we really want to talk about where we're at right now spiritually, right? Where has this journey really taken us?
Yeah, like, are we atheists? Do we still believe in Christianity? Like, what are we planning on raising our kids? Where we're at with all of those things. So,
and we're really talking about this because when you are very, very religious, atheists, it's kind of like the word's kind of like a dirty word, right? It's like a bad word. And so when I thought of atheists before, or even like agnostic, right? People who just don't believe or don't really care, it didn't make any sense, right? Like, how can people not believe that there is something after this life? Or how can they believe there's not a God? Like, it sounds like there's such dark people, like a dark energy around that word, right?
Yeah, right. It's a very, I think for a lot of people, very hopeless word, right? Like, if you're atheist, then you feel
how sad, right? Like, they're a depressed person because of that.
I think for me, it was something that I always really couldn't understand why people didn't believe. And, even if they didn't believe in Jesus, at least believe in some kind of higher power, right? Because I always felt growing up that there was something watching over me, right? And to me, I called that God, right? My parents were very spiritual. So I always grew up feeling like, how could somebody not look out and you see nature and you see your family and how could you just not think that there's something more to you than this? For me, it was very much feeling oriented. I just felt like there was always something there. But for you, I know you obviously believed in the church, but did you ever feel personally something was there? Was it more just in my head? Yeah, of course I know. How was it for you growing up?
I feel like when you grew up going to church every Sunday, and my dad was the one that took us to church, but he wasn't very spiritual. He was more religious. He was very good at following the commandments, at being faithful, at doing what's right, but not really feeling it much, or not being very emotional about it. And so, for me, I don't know, that was the lens that I had, right? I had these glasses my whole life, and the way I saw the world was all about the Bible and the Book of Mormon, which, Christians would say that Mormons are not Christian, but Mormons are one of the best Christians I've ever met. All the Christians I've met, they're the most devout, dedicated people that I've met. And so if anything, they follow the Bible more to the T than 99% of Christians.
I would agree.
And yeah, there's some weird shit there, right? With the temples and Joseph Smith making up a lot of stuff. There's a lot of bad things, but they are very good Christians for sure. But I guess I just remember seeing things happen in the news and always being oh, that's a miracle. I would even post on my story, if you saw me 5 years ago, even a lot more recent, 2 years ago, whenever there was a war and a car ran over someone, but they ended up being alive instead of dying when they had to die, right? It didn't make sense for them to be alive. I'll be hashtag miracles are real, something like that. And so I think I always saw the world through the lens of looking for miracles, looking for God. And if you're looking for things, you will find it, right?
Yeah, for sure.
So for you, I guess when you left the church, tell us if they didn't watch, I have a full video talking about leaving the Mormon church, what made us leave. And so you can go ahead and watch that. It's going to be in the description as well. But for you, when you left, were you kind of doubting God, or was it just doubting Joseph Smith and the church?
It was 100% just doubting the church, right? I did not ever think for a second that there wasn't a God or that I wasn't Christian. What I felt very concerned about is that I wasn't getting answers.
They smell good or bad?
Stinky.
She can't stop smelling me. It's the thrift shop. I smell like dead people right now. Because I only wear thrift shop clothes, and I love it.
Kissing herself.
It's a lot of weird clothes I can't find anywhere, but they smell like dead people.
So that's the thing. I never doubted it until I left the church. And then I tried really hard. I was still listening to just Christian non-denominational pastors on YouTube. I was reading the Bible.
Which are so much better than the Mormon churches, right?
Meeting. Yeah.
They're fucking public speakers and they get paid and they try really hard. The Mormon church is cool that they don't get paid, but that means that anybody can go up there and they suck. They do an awful job.
And the whole point for going, Brittany, you're gonna rip my hair out. The whole point of going is not necessarily to be uplifted by speakers. That's a cool byproduct, but really the point is to, commune with other members and to sing songs and to help each other and serve. You don't really go to church to get super uplifted because we've all been knowing the same things have been happening since we were children.
Well,
So
I think we wish we were uplifted by church.
That's what I'm
but
saying.
The Mormon church experience
you don't really get
was
uplifted.
very much like you go because you have to gotta take the sacrament.
And it's about serving other people who need you. It's not about you coming to church and having a great time. It's like you go to church, you listen to the talks, and I get it because I think it is really cool when everything is done by service, right? None of the people, we were teachers for the teenagers. We didn't get paid anything, but it's because people want to actually serve. They want to be there. And, sometimes I think you've heard all the scandals, right? Of the mega churches with the pastors getting paid, millions, have these huge congregations, but they're sketchy. So I'm not saying that one is better than the other. But
pros and cons, right? To each.
Pros and cons, but I would listen to them. And all of a sudden, when I was reading the Bible and when I was watching these preachers, I just didn't feel anything anymore. I used to at least hear, conference talks or even
was that when you left or before?
When I left. As soon as I left the church, I would listen to talks by pastors or read the Bible. Brittany. No, Brittany. So when I left, still reading the Bible, still watching those mega church pastors, but I just didn't really...
On YouTube, right? Whenever I went to church.
Yeah, on YouTube. But I would just kind of feel empty. Because I had already gone through kind of a rough relationship with God near the end of my time leaving the church because I felt like he wasn't really answering me. He wasn't giving me a yes. He wasn't giving me a no. And so when I left, I was whether the church was true or not. It was something that I came conclusively on my own devices because I felt like he was being quiet. And so I was at that point and I said, okay, silence is usually an answer, right? If I'm not feeling peace, if I'm not feeling like I should stay, and I'm feeling really concerned, really anxious, then I should go. And then I left and I felt peace. I didn't feel the anxiety anymore, and I didn't feel stressed out about believing in something that I had issues with. But I wasn't feeling the uplifting anymore. And it made me start thinking, maybe all of this was in my head. My biggest issue is that God was quiet. And from that point on, it's been God has been very quiet in my life. And
you had some anger issues before with God, right? Because you felt like he wasn't answering you.
Yeah. I was really mad and really frustrated. And it wasn't ever to the point I was so mad. I just was well, I don't want you to be real. I'm not going to talk to you anymore. It's just I felt like there was just this huge wall between me and God that I had never felt before. I always felt like we were really close. And then upon going through that experience...
So did you do something wrong then that he stopped answering? You're saying that he used to answer your prayers and he stopped?
Yeah, well, that's what they would say, counsel you in church, right? If you feel like you're not feeling God's presence anymore, what have you done that's bad? And that's what was so frustrating because I was being as faithful as I could. I was keeping the commandments. I was going to church. I was still doing everything I was supposed to. And I was feeling nothing. There was no unresolved sin. There wasn't anything that I was doing that made me feel like...
Now when you say that you used to feel it, what exactly did you used to feel? What changed in your feelings about God?
It's hard to explain, right? It's just a feeling of I feel at peace. I feel like somebody's there. It's when you're not in the room with me, I don't stop feeling your love because I can't see you. I don't have to see you to know that you still love me. So it was with God, I had this feeling that someone was protecting me, loving me, surrounding me. And I couldn't put my finger on exactly what that was. I called it God because that's what I'd grown up to call it. But that feeling started to fade, you know? And I don't think that's just because I was mad at God, because I wasn't shutting him out because I was mad at him or for any unresolved sin or because I was rebelling. It just was I was doing everything that I could. And I just felt like, okay, shut up, bitch. Make your own choices.
Yeah.
So from that point on, it's been kind of tricky. Like for you, finding out the church wasn't true, did that immediately make you question, like, God? Did you still believe in him? Like, what was that like for you?
I think it was all connected. Once you figure out that one thing is not true, you start doubting everything else. And for me, it wasn't like I chose right away. I'm trying to actually remember. I know January 4th of this year is when I knew the church wasn't true, and I was like, I'm out. And then I told you, I think that Sunday we stopped going to church, because she already knew for a while, right? Years that you kind of knew, but you were trying to pretend it was true. And for me, I thought 100% it was true, and I wasn't aware of all the information and data and all the evidence that it's false. And so when I got the evidence and I stepped out of my little box for once in my life, speaking of religion, right? Seeing that maybe, just maybe, there's a minimal chance that I could be wrong, that this could not be true. That's when I studied the facts and I was like, gosh, there's no way this can possibly be true. And so when we say this, we say Joseph Smith restoring God's church on earth and being the one and only true church with all the commandments, everything like it was before, eternal families, everything like the Mormon church believes. So that was the first layer for me. Now, we learn as Christians that it's all about the Holy Spirit confirming truth to you, which is a very tricky thing about Christianity, because the Bible says, right, like if anything is like good, gives you peace, love, I don't know what verse it is, when I was a Mormon missionary.
The fruits of the Spirit.
Yeah, the fruits of the Spirit are like love, peace, and all these good feelings. And so as a missionary, we'd be like, pray about this book. If it's true, then everything else is true, including the Bible, including God, including Joseph Smith being a prophet and all that. And then if people didn't feel much, like you said here that you didn't, like, well, do you feel anything bad? You don't. Do you feel peace? Yeah. That's God. God is peace, his love, his good things.
Like the absence of feeling anxious or bad is the answer that it's true.
And that's the tricky thing about the Spirit, right? Like having confirmation by the Spirit, because there's anywhere from 1,000 to 10,000 religions in the world right now, and everybody's claiming that they feel this thing telling them that they have the truth. And so for me, when I thought of the Spirit, like very strongly, like what does it feel like? To me, it was always the goosebumps and like this like very energetic thing that I've only felt like 3 times in my whole life. And so yeah, there's the peace, I was like, okay, sure, that's the Spirit. But like when I really felt like my body more like electrified, and the goosebumps and something more extraordinary, that happened like 3 times in my life.
But they weren't all spiritually related, were they?
No, and so at church, or like things related to the church, it happened 3 times. And then when I was examining the church and I was about to leave, like about to realize it was not true, I started thinking about the other times that I felt that. I was like, gosh, when I was a teenager in a rock concert, jumping and listening to loud music, and that's not a Mormon church. Mormon church is extremely boring. And so like, it's like the organ, funeral music, only old people. Like, it's not a fun experience. I never liked it, but if it's true, I don't give a shit if I like it. I'll follow it. So that's what I've always done. In Brazil, it's a little better because they play the piano. It's a little happier. But in Utah, it's just the organ. It sounds like a funeral every Sunday. And so that's when I thought, well, when I was in a rock concert, when I was at Tony Robbins event, when I was at these other places, I felt that spirit, the goosebumps, singing about politics in a rock concert, right? Like when I was a teenager, like it makes no sense that I would feel the Spirit at that environment where people were probably doing drugs. It's a rock concert where the lyrics were all like, were probably kind of dirty, So there's definitely no like spiritual connection to that rock concert. Tony Robbins, it's that enlightenment, right? Of like opening up your mind and like breaking down your false beliefs. And so that's, I think, when I started spiritually deconstructing God in the spirit, by realizing that anytime we feel inspired and enlightened, we feel that. And I only attributed that to the Christian God and the spirit because that's the glasses that I had growing up, right? You're supposed to read those experiences like they teach you. And so, yeah, that was it, I guess, when we left. That's where I was at. I was like, I've only attributed these feelings to this because that's what I've been taught. And now I'm open to learning about other things and like really breaking down every layer of belief to see where I'm at. And so we leave in January, and at that point, where were you at with your beliefs, or what were you kind of doing to figure things out?
Well, I started, similar to like you said, really opening myself up to a lot of different options, right? I'm somebody who, I'm a really good follower. So like, I love having a set of rules. Give me rules to follow. Like, I'm not somebody who's like a rule breaker or like this crazy thinking out of the box, like following my own path. Like, I want to find something that I believe in and I want to follow it because I'm really good at that. Like, if I believe in something, I'll follow it, you know? So I'm a great wife to you. I'm a great church member because I don't really question much until you do, right? Then you question everything. So then I started looking, like my next stop was like the Catholic Church. I'm like, okay, well the Catholic Church, they're the next church that makes all the claims that our church did. Like it has the unbroken lineage and authority from Peter, from Jesus. Yeah, so I was like, okay. But then I started looking more into that and some of the pitfalls, like deconstructing before you get in. I was like, oh yeah, no, I don't think that that's true. And then opening just up to like non-denominational Christianity. Like, okay, I don't have any kind of like path, right? But I believe in Jesus. And so I'm just going to do what I feel is best while trying my best to honor Jesus. But again, as I tried to do those things, I just felt kind of empty. Like I would pray and I was like, I'm just not getting anything out of it. And I'm trying really hard. And then I was like, well, maybe, you know, Christianity, then you fall down the slippery slope. Then I'm researching all about like pastors or people who are biblical scholars who, you know, realize they don't believe in Jesus Christ anymore, and that he was just somebody who was made up, right? And like there were no written copies until, you know, after all the apostles had died. So like, how can you know that it's accurate? And, you know, all this stuff that I think you just, when you're questioning something, you just keep going down and down and down the slippery slope until you're not certain of anything anymore.
Which is just breaking down. It's like an onion, right? I believe that we all have this onion of beliefs, and we gotta like go layer by layer until we get to the core of who we are and what
like
we really
what
believe.
you believe in morally without anybody telling you what it is.
Yeah, because it's the same thing like I kind of teach my clients, that we have a lot of beliefs about ourselves that we kind of acquired through our lives, right? So maybe you were, like I was a very dyslexic child, right? Like I didn't learn very quickly. I felt really dumb in middle school, in high school. And so one of my beliefs was that I wasn't very smart when I'm a fucking genius. Not in an IQ way, but like emotional intelligence and figuring things out. I'm a genius in my own way. But I had to break down the belief that I wasn't very smart first to find a deeper belief that you are smart in your own way, not like the other people, you know? And so I think we all have those layers. And I think that was the cool part about deconstructing, is that you're now open to more ideas. I remember watching for the very first time in my life, like, what are the top 30 churches in the US, like Christian churches, and what's the difference between each one of them. And then I just realized kind of like they're each rebranding a little and changing a bit of what they don't like, what they don't agree with. Which that's what businesses do, right? Like you create a service, you change a little, like you make your own thing, you niche down, you niche up, So like, I think it was a cool experience to go through that. And I think our biggest difference is that I didn't feel very lost. I was at peace with not knowing, right?
Yeah.
And you were pretty anxious about not knowing.
Yeah.
Why do you think that is?
Well, I was gonna say, like, you're somebody who you're so fine. We're very opposite in the sense of like you're your own trailblazer. You're fine on your own. Like, you know that whatever happens, you're gonna be fine. Like, you're not worried about even 5 years from now, right? You know, you're not anxious about the future. You're just like, you know, you can focus on the here and now and be present and like focus on that. And for me, like, I've been worried about going to hell since I was 9. So the idea of an afterlife for me, it's very important for me to feel like I've gotten that right, because, you know, this life is short in comparison to forever. And for you, that doesn't seem to, like, how does that not bother you? The thought of like, what if you're wrong and you're like going to hell? Like, even the fact that that's a possibility, like, doesn't that make you uneasy?
That's actually one of the biggest things. So getting to the question here, right? Are we atheist? Are we agnostic now? That was one. So I do not, as of today, believe that Jesus is the savior of the world. I think he probably did exist. I think he was a man. But just like so many prophets and crazy people and maybe geniuses, maybe really smart people, and maybe they did believe the things that they said, but I'm at a point today where I think there's a lot of, I believe in humanity. I think that's my God, which are the gods, which is people coming to earth, using the technology, the things that people before them paved the way, right? Like we have electricity today, we have water running, we know about the moon without being there ourselves. We know about Mars without being there. We know so much because people before us have discovered those things. And so I think what made real sense to me was that my purpose in life is to use the tools that I've been given from birth, right? What my parents have done for me, what humanity has learned, and then take that to the next level to make the world a better place. I like use my talents, use the tools, and make it better, like make millions of dollars, help people in need. I have a nonprofit, right? Like just like be a powerful influence in the world, like making a better place. To me, like that's my religion and my God right now.
So what do you think happens after this life when we die?
Honestly, at this point, nothing. I think we disappear like this. I think that's what it is. And I don't have anxiety about that. Because it's like, we're not here. Which, I will say though, okay? So here's I'm not very certain about that, and nobody is.
Yeah,
like
nobody.
when we're Christians, like, I know 100%. I testify. It's like, no, you don't. You hope. Good for you. Hope. Keep hoping. Like, if you want to hope for that, good for you. Be a good person. Don't judge other people for not believing that, and great. But you don't know. And so, I think that it ends, but also something really cool from deconstructing is they start opening your mind to like what people do. One of the things that I started learning since I deconstructed is mushrooms, right? People will do like magical mushrooms. And one of the crazy things about mushrooms is that people go on this journey with mushrooms, which is not to escape life like alcohol, right? You want to escape your reality, or with hard drugs, but rather it's to like go into like this introspective journey to like, people leave mushrooms usually saying that they feel very spiritual and that they see very similar things. And so hearing about mushroom stories makes me believe that there might be something bigger after this life, but I think there's not. And I'm taking my time learning and figuring it out, right? I'm not in a rush right now to like know for sure, and I think I'll never know for sure.
Yeah,
But that's where I'm at right now. How about you?
in a similar point, like I spent a lot of time watching like near-death experience videos and stuff. Because like I know for you it doesn't bother you, but for me it's like really scary, you know? Because like I love my family, and I want to be with them forever. You know, like I don't want to just disappear into nothing. Like I want to be with you forever. Not that you know, like if you disappear
We
into
hope,
nothing,
right? Yeah.
it's like where were we before we were born? I don't remember. You just didn't exist, right? So it's not like,
Yeah.
you know, you're not in pain or you're not suffering.
Yeah.
But here's the thing, though, that's way less scary to me than being wrong going to hell. Because at least if we just like poof and disappear,
Yeah.
there's no suffering.
We're not gonna be tormented for the rest of our lives.
I don't want to be tormented for eternity. So I've been watching a lot of like near-death experience videos, and people say a lot of the same things, you know, and things that even in the church I would hear, like, oh, like if they saw their family members coming to get them, or you know, they saw God or the universe. So I'm very hopeful. Like, I really do feel like there's something, and I don't know like what to call it. I think God is just a big word for it, but
the universe, right? Like, it sounds so hippie to say the universe.
Very
There's
new
even a
age.
verse in the Book of Mormon, right? Like, it's not, some people call it universe, but it's God. But like, yeah, I think that's like, I hope that's what it is too. Like, there's something bigger that, you know, it's energized, right? And like, we connect in some way later. And I think I'll actually probably think more about it once I have somebody close to me die, like my family members and stuff.
Yeah.
Because then I'll actually like be shocked by it. But also, I think I'll be very logical and be like, they didn't go all in with their dreams and goals in their lives, and they probably wasted their life
Like
stuck in their own ways. So I think really like the purpose of life to me is growing, becoming better, and impacting the world, making a difference with our talents and skills. But I do hope that there's something bigger, of course, so we can see each other. But speaking of hell, you mentioned that, and that's one of the things that made me really question Christianity. And again, I'm from Brazil. 99% of people are Christian in Brazil.
Macumba.
Yeah, like they have all their stuff, but 99% of them are, even macumbeiros are Christian. Most of them believe in Jesus as a savior. And I don't know, people, right, like mix cultures and religions and blah, blah, blah. But hell was one of the things that really made me question Christianity. Because I was like, how can this loving Heavenly Father, God, who loves perfectly like we can't, how can He send His kids to be in this awful place for eternity?
But no, because the Christians say, but you chose to go there. He gave you the chance to come and accept
and then it's
You're
like,
choosing to
if
go.
there's 10,000 anywhere from 1,000 to 10,000 religions, you're saying that if I chose the wrong one, me, your son, and you, the perfect loving God, you're gonna say, no, you didn't choose the right religion, so straight to hell. Button for the eternities. Like, really?
It doesn't, like, as a parent, like, I don't even have kids, and to imagine telling my kid, like, fuck you, you want a relationship with me, but you went to the wrong guy.
Yeah,
Bye.
like, even like as weak parents who are very imperfect, if your kids are doing drugs, if they're doing like the wrong, even if they're criminals, you will have grace and try to embrace them and help them fix them.
Yeah.
You're saying that if they made a mistake, or the biggest mistakes there are, like denying God or like killing someone, I don't know, like they're gonna burn forever. Like, that's just so crazy to me. And then thinking about Christ dying for our sins with an open mind, right? Not with the lenses that I was given, but just trying to see it from a distant place for the first time in my life. You think about it, God made us because He chose everything. He made this plan. So the Christian God put us here on earth as sinners through Adam and Eve. And then because we were born sinners, we need Him. So He's already giving us the need even before we're born. We need to accept and make Him our idol and like give our lives to Jesus since birth, because we're born wrong, we're born mistaken, we're born messed up already. We give our lives to Him because He had to kill His Son to die for us. And if we don't accept that, then we were born messed up already. But we need to accept the sacrifice that He made, because He created the plan. But now if I don't accept His plan, I'm wasting Him killing His Son. Like, it's just such a fucked up story that, like, it's really interesting, because when you're born in it, you just don't really question. And I feel like I'm more of a rebel at heart. I was a very good follower, but I always liked being unique and different. But that part of my brain, I never touched, right? Church, Jesus, the one true church, all of that, it was always intact. And then I started breaking it down. God really seems like the most narcissistic person there is, where he says, I'm gonna make you broken, you're gonna be born broken, and I'm gonna do this crazy thing here, kill someone for you being born broken. And if you don't accept that, if you don't give your life to me, if you don't do things my way, if you don't live like I want you to live, then you're gonna burn in hell for the eternity. It's like, what the fuck? That's really God? Really? That's the most loving, perfect person in the universe is like that. And so I think hell is one of the biggest things that made me not believe in Christianity. And the whole atonement sacrifice idea just like kind of broke before my eyes when I started thinking about that.
Yeah, it's funny when you start thinking of things not so attached, right? Which I think is just smart, cognizant thinking, is being able to separate yourself from it. And the thing is, I wish I could believe in that. Like, my biggest takeaway, and I've said this again, and I know some people are like upset that I say it, but like, even though I know the church isn't true, I wish that I had been lied to. Like, I wish I would have been able to convince myself in some way that even if the church isn't true, at least that, there is a God or there is a Christ, because I like the idea of so many things, right? And maybe it's just my anxiety of the afterlife. At this point, I think with my belief journey, like, I'm very hopeful that something does exist. So, like, I would probably think
maybe mushrooms will do it.
agnostic.
So we'll try mushrooms and let you know how that goes.
But it's like, we're probably like agnostic, right? It's not like, and I always thought agnostic was like, I don't care about anything. But I think agnostic is,
like,
I don't
I'm not
know.
sure.
I'm not sure, and I'm not willing to
I'm not-
label something
yeah.
that I don't know what it is.
I think it's just like not claiming you have the truth, right?
Yeah, that's exactly how I feel. Like, I'm so open, and I could have some kind of spiritual experience that changes things for me, and I'm back on the path, and I relate as a Christian, or maybe something else, some kind of experience. But until then, I'm open. I'm trying to be a good person. I want to raise our kids to be good people and serve people and do good things. And at that point, that's all I have.
And I think that's the biggest thing. When you are so Christian, you think that there's no other way to be a great person but believing in Jesus and following the Ten Commandments.
And we
And most of them are great, right?
Oh, that couple's so cool. Imagine if they were just Christian. Like,
Yeah.
why? They're great people, and we felt like they were missing something. Like,
Oh, yeah.
she's amazing. Imagine if she had the gospel. Like,
Oh,
she's
yeah.
better than we're doing. Like, I don't think she needs anything that we're selling.
That's a very like Mormon thing, right? You see great people like they're so ready, like they'll be such great members, like
They're doing great without it.
they
without
don't
the
need
trauma.
it. They don't need it. Like, they're doing great. I think that's the coolest thing, I guess, about being where we're at now, is that one, we don't have the pressure of figuring it out, right? I'm very happy where I'm at this point, what I believe, which is, again, we have the power. We are the gods, right? That may sound very blasphemous if you're very Christian or from another religion. But really, they're like, we have the power to change our lives. We have the power to build whatever we want. We have the power. Like, I had someone in my family who, when I started my nonprofit, feeding the homeless, they criticized, I'll say they because it's one person, I'll say the sex. But they criticized me. They said, well, you bring in more, like, people who feed the homeless, they bring more homeless to the city. We don't want them to be close to us, blah, blah, blah. And then when they prayed over lunch, they're like, God, please feed people we need, help them, I have food. It's like, bitch, you don't want to come feed the homeless with me, but you're telling God to do it? Like, what the fuck? Take the power in your hands
But how's
and be
God
God.
gonna do it? God does it through people.
He does it for the people. But I think that even though most people know that, they're aware that God works through people, when you put your power into something else, you're kind of letting him choose whether you're going to be that actress or not, whether you're going to be successful or not, whether your mission is this or that, because you're taking power away from your hands to this magical thing where you can put your excuses to, right? I don't need to do it because God will work it out.
That's exactly, I think, the biggest change in me that I've seen is being able to not say, because I always used to have the piece of like, if it's meant to be, it's meant to be. Like, if God wants it to happen, it's going to happen. And now I can be like, no, if I want it,
I'll keep doing it for 10 years until it happens.
Make it happen, There's no magical being that, and if God exists, I don't really know that he cares so much about what we want for our careers, what we want to do. Hopefully he's worried about the bigger things going on than like whether or not opportunities happen. So I think for me that's been the biggest thing is, well, I don't have to say to Deus quiser, like I want it, I'm gonna make it happen. I'm not gonna leave it up to fate.
And I think that's very...
It's an excuse for a lot of people. If it's gonna happen, it's gonna happen. No, if you work really hard, maybe it'll happen.
Yeah. Speaking of that, I have a club called the Reality Engineers Club, where we really take power on our hands to do whatever we want out of life. I really believe that people, have the power to become whoever they want to become. But that does take a lot of work, right? It takes being consistent. It takes doing it until it happens, not if it happens. You want to be Ariana Grande. You want to be the biggest lawyer on earth. I believe you can. It might take you 20, 30 years to get there. You have to do it in your own way. You have to keep adapting and learning and growing, being better every single day. But I do believe it's possible to reach and even if you're not number one, if you're just number 100 in the world, that's a pretty damn good place to be at, right? And so that's what we do at the club, really help you clarify what you want for your career, like how you want to make tons of money, how you want to grow personally too, like if you want to lose weight, get stronger, be mentally in a better place while making more money, starting a business, growing that, and staying consistent to the actions that will get you there. Breaking it down to what I need to do daily to make this happen, taking the action. And so you can start that for free. There's going to be a training to help you clarify your goals. And then there's going to be the daily assistance from an accountability coach. So it's a powerful system. Go and start a trial right now. And Rachel's also wearing here her wig. The wig looks really cool. So where can they get that wig?
You can go to rosette.co, and if you want hair as big as mine, I used to say, higher the hair, closer to God. I don't know what I say now.
Higher the hair, closer to the moon.
The bigger the hair, the bigger the bitch. There you
go.
That's my new saying. Bigger the hair, bigger the bitch. Go to rosette.co so that you can have hair to the moon as well.
Now, speaking of living big, I think one of the biggest things that helps me feel the spirit, right, that I used to feel at
the inspiration.
Instances at church, like 3 times in my life, is music. Like, I think music has such a power to inspire me and to touch me. And so that's what I do as well. I produce, write, and speak in my music so that I can remember that, I have the power. I can do whatever I want in my life as long as I put the accountability on me. I put the responsibility on me. I can make whatever happen. In music, when I'm feeling kind of tired during the day or I'm feeling kind of down, there's weeks that we're thriving, that there's weeks that we're feeling kind of down. I put my music on every morning or when I'm doing the dishes and I get really energized. I remember my vision, my goals, my dreams, and I get up and I start working instead of complaining, instead of like making excuses. My music is that tool for me. And so you can go to benjo.com/music and listen to all the songs coming out every month. There's a lot out already. And I hope that they inspire you as well to remember that you have the power to do whatever it takes in your life. And that really, like, at the end of the day, you have the power to believe whatever you want, right? You can be an amazing Christian. You can be an amazing Buddhist. You can be an amazing agnostic, an amazing atheist. Like, it doesn't matter what you believe. As long as you're okay with other people believing differently than you, and you're doing good, right? You're being a good person, then it doesn't really matter what you believe. I should have a song about that coming out probably in 4 or 5 months. I have a lot of songs ready. But it's all about that, right? How it's, I think the real religion is service. And if we can take our talents, our skills, grow personally, grow financially, and give back to the world, to our community, to our family, then I think you're going to be a very happy, fulfilled person.
Now, that said, if you have any thoughts of any kind of religions or spiritual experiences you think could help maybe Les Benjamin, maybe me, feel free to leave them in the comments below or direct message us on Instagram. I'm at Rachel Rosette. He's at Benjer Music or at Benjer Rosette. And yeah, feel free to send over anything that you feel like might be helpful. But until then, we will talk to you next week.
See you. Bye.
Bye.